hear many stories of how great and mightily God worked in the midst of people who were willing to go out and share Jesus in that mission trip. So we're just going to sing about how great and mighty is our God.
In 1982, on Father's Day, when I was in between my 11th and 12th grade year, I went on my very first mission tour with the church I grew up in. And so one thing special about this trip is that we left on Father's Day, because we left on Father's Day on that trip too. And a lot of my mission trips at Sunset Road were from Father's Day. But the thing, I couldn't believe how, which I shouldn't have, but God just brought everything together. Like, I went not knowing what to expect, not knowing if it would all come together, but He took 3 churches, one from Florida, one from Charleston, South Carolina, and us, and pulled us all together with over 50 people, and just everything fell in place. The only thing that got shorted was the cooks. We had a couple cooks, and then we moved them to other places, and the cooks kind of got shafted. So Kevin Aldridge, a guy named Tyle from Florida, and Samuel, with some assistance from Chris Hughes, cooked. So they would do breakfast, lunch, and dinner. So they got up before we did, they fed us breakfast, then they did the dishes, and then they rested for an hour or two, and then they started all over. And then once we got done with Vacation Bible School and came back and ate lunch, then we had the whole evening free. But then they still had to cook us supper. So the cooks are the ones that work the hardest. But I was very pleased at how just watching everything fall together. Next.
I really should just second what Teresa said. But that wouldn't be fair to you getting to hear from all the others in the group. Now, I will tell you, surprisingly, we have a few that didn't really want to get up and share tonight.
Thanks, Lynn.
You know we're going to have to change that in a minute. But believe it or not, we had a few that just didn't get excited about getting to share with the church. And I will be honest, we're not forcing anybody to, but we've kind of strongly encouraged a few. We have a few others that I know would love to share, and they didn't get to be here tonight for one reason or another. But here's a good part of the group that we sent to Cherokee last week. And I can't wait to hear what some of them are going to say. Again, I'm not forcing anybody to, but if you will, I sure would appreciate it. Let's see, Mac, didn't you say you'd like to go next? Well, I'm not done. I'm not done, but I have the privilege of coming back. So.
Can you hear me? Yeah, okay. So I'm Mac Parweir. That's my dad, Mark. I'm sure everybody in here knows that, except for a few. So with the mission trip, one thing that I noticed the whole time is, as the youth, we had some problems here and there where we didn't get along the best. Because, we had to ride in a van, and then we would get annoying or something, and then we would get in an argument. But in the end, we would always settle our differences, and we would always come together. And anytime anybody needed anything, we would always be there for each other. So, towards the last day, me and Mason, we ran the lights and everything. So we got all that sorted out, and then we had Allie and Taylor turn off the lights and then surprise the kids with the spotlights and everything. And so that went pretty good. So I think as a youth, we all worked together really well, and everybody was willing to work, and nobody was bashful. And I feel like the Lord really just led everybody. The Holy Spirit, I really felt His presence there. And in the pictures, y'all can see, especially Allie and Taylor, they were constantly doing stuff. And Kaylee, she's not here, but she was constantly helping the kids. And me and Mason met a kid named Isaac, and he's from South Carolina, and he was helping Dad the whole time with everybody. And it just, from the youth perspective, it all went really well. And nobody was nervous, nobody was bashful. We all just did what the Lord wanted us to do, and it went pretty good. So, yeah.
As you can see, with a group like we had, it would have to be a great week. We have one that would love to be here and take the rest of our time, but he had eye surgery today, so he couldn't be with us. I have two different guys that have claimed that he asked them to take his time also. I'm not sure if we should depend on either one of those, but Mike, you want to come and? We never know what's going to happen to this group.
Well,
This is Bill.
oh wait a minute, I got to put my hat on. I don't normally like to wear a hat at church. I wear this tie. I wear
That's why you wanted to.
Yeah, and then I even went downstairs and sprinkled some sawdust on my shoes, but I've noticed I've knocked most of that off. But Bill was a great time down in Cherokee, and I have to agree with what Teresa said. We didn't know what to expect. Had no idea how this was all going to come together. We had Chris telling us that We don't know. We're going to have 2 kids, 1 kid, 5 kids. We don't know. We don't know how many we're going to have, if we have any. Because there's an older church, and they're trying to get youth back into their church. And the very first morning, we had, 2 or 4 signed in kind of early. And then we were all kind of sitting around wondering what's going to happen. Then next thing we know, we've got 2 vans from a daycare center, and they just kept coming in. And so the very first day, I'll have to admit, I think Denise had the roughest class because she had the biggest class. It was 7 and 8-year-olds. And word came down, somebody come up and helped Teresa. She's got too many kids. So I went upstairs and helped with her. And there were some rowdy boys there. And, we just had to kind of set at tables to keep things in line. And then I noticed on Tuesday they were a lot easier to deal with. And then by the last day, well, they were great. But they split the classes up. But still, the kids were great. You could tell they'd calmed down a whole lot. And they truly did learn a lot about Jesus. And it was just a blessing to be there. It really was. Now, talking about construction. We started a project because Bill ran into Red Cloud, right? The deacon told him, right? Okay. The deacon told Bill about Red Cloud. He was a fellow pretty well stricken to a wheelchair, and he needed some things done around the house. You saw some pictures of that there at the house where the cross was put up. And so we spent probably 2 hours one morning and 3 hours that afternoon or so.
3 days there.
Yeah, you spent 3 days there. But I kept going. I'd do vacation Bible school in the morning, then I'll go help paint and do various other things. But that was a pretty good-sized project. There was a whole bunch of fence posts that had to be put in. Great big pile of gravel had to be moved with a wheelbarrow with a flat tire. And they were so appreciative. And she had asked him the possibility of putting some kind of cross in her little garden there in the front. And Bill got to thinking about that. Yep, we'll make that happen. So Bill got a couple of timbers and made a cross in the campground, actually, and everybody signed and put a verse down on the cross. And they went back the next day and planted it right there in the center of that little garden. And I think she cried pretty good. Yep. And then we get back, and Bill sends me a text message and says, all it says is, I got caught. Okay, Bill, what'd you get caught doing? You never know what's going to come out. Well, I stopped by Red Cloud's place, and I didn't think anybody was home. All vehicles was gone, so he said he just kneeled down to pray at that cross before he left. And next thing he knew, his wife was standing there next to him. So they prayed there at the cross. She cried again, and it was just a great feeling to get from that. What else did we do? We painted another church building.
We painted in
Front of a
the
church.
church building that it was an older congregation again, and because of COVID, it died out, and they wanted to revive it. They wanted to restore it. So with what little assets we had, we went ahead and painted the front of it. And we're probably going to go back and do the rest of it because we didn't do all of it at some point in time. And then there was a tree in the back of the pastor's yard that I couldn't put my arms around it. I don't think
It was
either one of
huge,
us
no.
could put our arms around it and touch.
It was a walnut.
Yeah. And
Hard.
we cut that up so they could have it for firewood or whatever. I don't know. We cut it up for them. Are you done?
You just keep on talking, and I'll finish up.
I'm really going to emulate my past stores. And I'm not going to ask permission, but I will ask forgiveness when I'm done because I know I'm going to go over 4 minutes. My heart is in men's ministry. And
Hey, Dennis, could you move over right in front of that microphone?
Mike, right in the mouth.
Thank you.
do I have to?
Yeah.
My heart is in men's ministry, and I truly believe in it. Vacation Bible School is important, but if we don't get men to stand up and be men, we're hurting.
That's right.
And this Red Cloud that Mike, and I just met Mike a
Yeah,
week
that's
ago.
right.
We
First
just
time
met
we
him
met.
a week ago. But this guy, Red Cloud, we made a connection with him. And we really did. He's a professional wrestler. If any of you watched wrestling back in the mid-'80s, Red Cloud was supposed to be the future Wahoo McDaniels. Now, I did watch wrestling. I'm a sucker. I watched it. I believed it. But it didn't work out. He couldn't be a good guy. So they renamed him the Nightmare on Mid-South Wrestling. And he was a professional wrestler. And you can tell it because his body scars tell the truth. His voice, when he speaks, he can hardly speak because he's been hit in the throat so many times with a chair or something. He's probably been hit over the head a few times with a chair or a table because his thought process is not all there. He is in a wheelchair pretty much regularly. That pile of gravel that Mike talked about was probably almost waist high. And we annihilated that. They couldn't pull in their driveway and go through. They had to back out each direction. They had a kind of a semicircle driveway. We annihilated that gravel pile and did everything that they wanted. When we left there, those people were in tears. When Bill and I, and there were two guys from the church in South Carolina that we got to meet and work with, and when the four of us left, those people were in tears. But they're members of that Cherokee Baptist Church, and all they needed was somebody to stand beside them and help them. And that's what we did, literally. We came alongside of them. And for those, we talked to people down there in that Indian tribe, that Cherokee tribe. A lot of them are afraid of people because they're afraid they're going to come in and take what they own and what they possess away from them. Whether you realize it or not, Cherokee has been bought 3 times over, and all by the United States government and everything. Now, Cherokees have bought it back from this government 3 different times. And they're afraid of it. But when they see your heart is genuine and you're reaching out to them, they're reaching back out to you. And that man and that wife and his wife, Red Cloud and Teresa, were very appreciative of what we did. And before we left, when Bill got caught, he went over to see what had happened. That cross you've seen in that picture, and thank you guys for whoever signed it. I don't know who did. But that cross we put in the middle of a flower bed, and we put it in one day, the next day she'd already planted flowers around the bottom of that cross. That's how much it meant to them. And we made friends for life, I believe. We did. Not only Mike and I, and 2 from the pastor and another guy from South Carolina. That's what it's all about, coming together. And none of us knew each other. I mean, I knew Bill, unfortunately, but we'll take that with a grain of salt. No, Bill's a great character, and I love him. And it's good that we can have somebody to pick on too. And he picks on me, just believe it. But it is, and that's that was the thing that hit me the most, was just the way we could develop a relationship with those people, and I know they want us to come back. They're looking forward to it.
I want to end real quick by just saying I was so impressed with the cooks and the amount of effort it took to feed 3 meals a day and feed all these people 3 times a day for 3 days in a row. And they're the ones that, big kudos to them, because they really worked hard to make that happen. The only thing I didn't care for it, I stayed in town, had to drive back and forth. It was like 8 miles out there, and best I could tell, it was 8 miles back. But it was a great experience, you guys.
Amen.
So I'm stepping in and out because, of course, I'm playing with the kids. But I just wanted to let you know, I don't know what else has been said, so I'll try not to repeat anything. But I think that we had an awesome time. I think we connected with a lot of the kids. A lot of the kids, I was a teacher in one of the classrooms, and a lot of the kids knew nothing about Jesus or who he was, but they had lots and lots of questions. So we had a lesson that we would start with, but we spent most time just talking about the basics of who Jesus is, why he came, how he came, what he did for us. And we talked about that each day. They wanted to talk more and more about it. So it was really exciting to see them interested and excited. We also, the story may have been told, but I think it's pretty impressive. When the kids came from a daycare or a summer camp, they made it very clear that none of them would be there the next day because they already had plans. But they had a great time, and they were coming in 2 days, but they had other plans that were better than us, and they said it the whole time. But when they got back to the day camp, they were given the choice to come back to us or not, and they all picked to come back to us. So it was just awesome, and we got to get to know some people better from our own church. We got to meet people from other churches that will hopefully keep that connection, and maybe they're even talking about maybe doing joint ventures again in the future. So again, I won't talk too long, but it was awesome. I think everybody should try to do it. It was a lot of fun.
What I learned on the trip was, like, out of all the people there, if you had a small job, a big job, or a job that was behind the scenes, it all came together. Like, if it wasn't for that one person that wasn't there, then the whole thing might not have gone as smooth as it did. So that's what I think.
Bill's not here, so you get me to follow up. Some people say I have a little Bill Gore in me. I'm not going to name who that is, but Chuck Campbell might have said that one time. I have to tell two stories, and if I go over 4 minutes, sorry, shoot me. Bury me in the yard, we'll be okay. It's amazing how God works, and some of them have already said, when we went down there, Chris Hughes had told us, we may not have anybody show up. We may have one kid. We may have 2 kids. And I'll be honest with you, I thought to myself, why in the world am I taking my time to go to Cherokee for 1 or 2 kids? I mean, all these 50-some people is going to show up for 2 or 3 kids, and this just seems like kind of a waste of resources, and there's so much other stuff I really need to be doing. But I thought, I signed up, I dedicated that I would go to it, and I'm going to go, and whatever happens will happen. And we get down there, and we decorate on Monday morning. And Monday afternoon, we sent out 3 teams to canvass the area and give out flyers. And so I volunteered our youth, our van, to take one of the roads that leads up to our campground. And we started up the road there. And just kind of looking for signs of kids. And I see over here on the left this building that kind of looked like it had some play stuff out front. And we'll just pull in there. And one of the girls in the back's like, what are we doing? What are we doing? And I'm like, well, we're pulling in here to see what's going on. Now, I'm comfortable talking to people. I'm very comfortable going up and knocking on doors. It doesn't bother me. For some of our youth, that's a new thing. So I rolled in there, and this lady was sitting on the picnic table. She had a lanyard on. And I think Allie and somebody, I can't remember who else got out with me. But anyway, Allie was one of them. We get out, and the lady's sitting there, and I said, ma'am, you look like you're somebody important. She says, no, I'm not really. I'm just the nurse. I said, well, what kind of facility is this? And she said, well, it's like our Head Start. And I said, oh. I said, well, here's some pamphlets and flyers about our Bible school. We're doing it down here at Cherokee Baptist. I'd love for you to just give them to your parents as they pick their kids up. And she said, I'd be glad to, and I'll put it on the Cherokee yard sale Facebook page. And I'm like, okay, that'd be great. And we get ready to leave, and she says, have you all been over to the brick building across the road? I said, no, haven't been over there. I said, what's over there? And she said, that's where our newspaper is. the One Feather newspaper, the office is in that brick building. She said, you really ought to go over there and ask them if they would put it on their Facebook page. It's too late to put it in the paper because it started the next day. I said, well, I appreciate you telling me. And we went up the road and handed out some stuff, come back down, rolled into the brick building there. Mac and Kaylee, I think, got out. We went in. Native American lady sitting behind the desk window, and I walk up, and she kind of looks at me, and I said, ma'am, just here to tell you about our Bible school down at Cherokee Baptist. We kind of get to talking, and she says, oh, I know where that church is. I'm familiar with it. And I said, well, we're just trying to get the word out. We're hoping you'll put it on your Facebook page because we know a lot of people look at your Facebook page. And she said, well, I may try to get my sister to bring my kids down tomorrow. I said, that'd be great. We'd love to have them. And, you know, let me tell you something about Cherokee people, and it's already been talked about just a little bit. They're a lot like mountain people. They're very prideful. They don't trust, and I'm not saying that they're mean. They just don't trust people from the outside because they want to know what you're wanting from them. And mountain people are that way too. And I'm a mountain person, 5th or 6th generation mountain person. So I get that. And she said, well, have you been down to the day camp? I said, no. Well, I said, what? She said, have you been down to the day camp? I said, ma'am, I didn't even know there was a day camp. I said, where's the day camp out? She said, well, you go like you're going to Bryson City and you go 2 miles out of town into Birdview. I said, Birdview? And she said, yeah, the Birdview complex. She said, you need to go down there and talk to them. Okay, so we get back in the van. We take off towards Bryson City, and sure enough, about 2 miles out of town, there's this complex out there named Birdview, which is a community, part of the Cherokee property. And again, Kaylee and Mac goes in with me. And here's a Native American lady, older lady, and she's sitting there, and when I walk in, she looks at me funny. And I just kind of broke the ice, and I said, ma'am, I said, you got the look on your face as though you're wondering what in the world I'm doing here with a handful of pamphlets and 2 young adults standing behind me. And she didn't say anything. She just kind of nodded. I said, ma'am, we're here to see if you would give these pamphlets out for our Bible school we're doing at Cherokee Baptist. And I said, the Native American, the lady at the newspaper sent me here with these youth to tell you about it because she felt like you needed to know. And she took it and she looked at it. And she said, are you going to break them up into age group or how? And I said, yeah, they'll be broke up. She said, well, and she just kind of looked at it again. And I said, look, if you'll just give them out when the parents come. And she said, well, I'm going to talk to my staff. And if we don't have anything planned, we'll just put them on the buses and bring them up there tomorrow. And I said, you will? And she said, yeah. I said, okay. Well, sounds good. And she said, but now, and Denise mentioned this, she said, now, Wednesday is movie day. So we won't be there Wednesday. I said, ma'am, I don't care if you're going to bring them one day. Just bring them. We don't care. So the next morning, about 5 minutes till 9, we didn't have that many. And all of a sudden, as someone said, 2 vans pulled up. And they just, you know, and we're trying to register. And I mean, it was just, it was crazy. The next morning, 9 o'clock rolled around and they wasn't there. Chris Hughes come out and he said, Mark, where's that place at? He said, I'm just going to drive down there and see if they're coming or not. I said, I'll tell you what, get in the van, I'll drive you. So we jet down there. And the lady who was at the front desk that nodded, once I told her that the lady from the newspaper sent me, nicest woman you ever meet in your life. I mean, it's like just a switch flip. And as Chris and I walked up to the door to open the door to see where the kids were, if they was coming, she met us at the door and had a honey bun in one hand. And she said, I've been by myself for the last 2 hours. We're coming. We're just running late. I said, all right, that's good. That's all I want to know. And I always say that to say this. I went down there with a very dim look on what was going to happen. And we ended up with probably average 40 kids every day. A bulk of them come from that day camp. That's nothing that I did. That's nothing that any of our youth did. It's just, it was the stepping stones that God wanted us to go through to get those kids there. And that's all it was. The other quick story I'll tell you, first missionary trip for me, I'm a huge North American Mission Board supporter. I love North American Mission Board. But probably the most meaningful time for me, and they already know this, is Wednesday night, late, 11 o'clock probably. Me and two of my youth sat at a picnic table and talked for an hour. And I found out a lot about them that I didn't know. And you know, when you know where somebody's coming from, you understand who they are, why they are, and the struggles that they have sometimes. And I really don't think our church realizes that. And golly, it didn't mean to cry. But I love all of our youth. And, you know, it doesn't matter if you was raised in church or wasn't raised in church. Life is hard. And they are bombarded by so much garbage. Garbage in, garbage out. So, if you didn't go this year, just because you chose not to go, please go next year. And if you couldn't go because of work, I get it. Things happen. But you'll make connections with people that will blow your mind. And you'll get to see God work. So that's all I have to say. Sorry, I'm over my 4 minutes.
Of course. After all, I guess. Just stand up here and talk, so I talk to. Now we're back from our big adventure. You're right. And yes, we were just inundated with the children, and we were just like, we would have been happy if there had been like 2, you know, and we were ready for 2. We thought that's beautiful. But, it was far more than 2. It was just the whole van load and another whole van load. So we enjoyed working with those children immensely. But I want to tell you about, you know how Pastor Charlie's always talking about divine appointments. And I had one of those, and it was totally unexpected. If you know me, I'm kind of reserved and a little shy, but we went to pick up 20 pizzas Wednesday night, Lynn and I, for the group. And at the pizza place, they miscounted. They had 19, and so they had to make another one while we were standing there. And so we had, I think Lynn said we had 7 minutes from the time they said they would make another one and they would be ready. There was a Cherokee lady sitting over in a chair, and she had made eye contact with me and, you know, smiled, and I had said hello, and she said hi. And while we were waiting for that pizza to be fixed, I just went over and sat down by her. And it was the most natural thing in the world. I'm still amazed. To just start talking to her. And you know, she poured out her whole life story to me. She just poured out her heart. And she was just, she needed encouragement. She had grown up in church, she said. She knew who Jesus is. But she had lost her dad. She was raised in Oklahoma, which told me that she was a descendant of the Trail of Tears branch of the Cherokee Indians. So she wasn't raised in Cherokee, but her dad had moved back to Cherokee, or to Cherokee, where his descendants were from. But then he got very sick, and she came from Oklahoma to take care of him, because he had dialysis and everything. And he died just, less than a year ago anyway. Her fiance, the father of her 2 5-year-old twin boys, had just recently passed away also. And one of her uncles. She was just, so down and so devastated. And we just talked, and we talked about how God works and what he was going to do to help her through this time. And I said, would you like me to pray with you? I said that. And she did. Oh, she was more than happy. She wanted me to pray with her. So we prayed together, and her name is Bessie. I got that far. I know her name. Her name is Bessie, and I will be praying for her. She even asked about the Vacation Bible School, but she travels by transit. And she lives way up on the top of one of the mountains. I said, if she showed up the next day, I would be totally amazed. But she didn't. I mean, it was too far, for her to try to travel with her 2 5-year-old twin boys. And then she had an older daughter. Her older daughter came back in from out in the shops. She was waiting for the transit, so that's what she was waiting for. Or she was waiting for me, to talk to her. And it was a beautiful time. And you know what? I challenge all of us to do what Pastor Charlie has said. Be aware. People around you. Everybody's hurting. People need the Lord. And maybe they won't say it, or maybe they'll just pour out their life story to you. And you can pray with them too. It was a blessing.
Mark, you were there to make that connection, to get those kids there. You were also there, Mark also got a van for the older youth within a couple weeks of us going, which made it such a better experience for them, but also a safer experience, for, them all together going down there. So, Samuel Lusk, he worked his behind off every day because he was on the cooking crew. So he was up early and he was in bed late and everything. We thank Chris for all he did, but I also want to thank our prayer partners, because a church sends the mission team out, but y'all are all part of the mission team because you're here praying for us. And then also everybody that made cookies. I don't know who y'all are. Y'all just picked up little packets and we don't know who you are, and that's okay. But we appreciate all the support that you gave us, because the church really is part of the mission tour too. So.
Hi, everybody. I don't normally do this. I'm like, anyway. So this was my first trip. Had no idea what to expect, what the Lord was going to do through me, for others, because of me. So Teresa talked about the cooks that were assigned to fix everybody's meal. I was one of those cooks that didn't cook. They had me signed up to cook, but then I got grabbed by Cindy, because she was in charge of the music. She was in charge of teaching the children the songs for the day and the choreography that went along with those songs. And so that was my job. Then I had to learn 4 different songs in 3 days, that with all this handwork and body work and stuff. It wasn't this little light of mine or the Lord's Army. It was so many movements that it took a while for me to get it, and I still don't know it all. So hopefully between now and Vacation Bible School, I will know how to do all these dances and songs. And anyway, another thing that I was blessed with was getting to know all the people in the church, our church that I went with. Mike and I come and go, you all know that. And so, we get to know you a little bit, and then we leave, and then we come back. But being with everybody and sharing food with them and fellowship was just a blessing to me. And I enjoyed going, and I hope to do that again sometime. Thank you.
Did y'all pick up on the fact that not everything went exactly the way it was planned? It's kind of the one thing you can be sure of on a mission trip. I've heard it said we make our plans and God laughs. A lot of us didn't do the things that we might have thought we were going to do, but we realized we did what we were supposed to do. I want to thank each one of our group that were there, and yes, we're looking forward to next year, I should say. I've not talked to anyone that was on the trip, whether they were from our